Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer, and this is a video about the Sagittarius full moon. Super exciting times, my friend, and I use exciting as a euphemism. A lot of you know you are not having fun. None of us are. So hang in there, beloveds. This isn't going to be a forever journey, but it is a required step in the journey for all of us as we move toward, as my astrology teacher Nadia Shah says, greater love and greater wisdom, but also as we move toward greater expression of love and freedom and love and truth as well. So, since we were last together on one of these videos, the nodes changed signs. And we had the nodes of the moon, which are sensitive points. They are calculations. They're not actually, how to put it, they are not planets. The nodes of the moon are sensitive points of calculation between the earth and the moon in the sky, and they move a very particular way in relationship to what we can see on earth. And so their nodes spent 2 years in North Node Cancer, South Node Capricorn. And just this last little stretch of time, we had the North Node move into Gemini and the South Node move into Sagittarius. And when the nodes of the moon change signs, they bring forward a new focus for us as a collective in terms of where our energy is meant to go. With the North Node in Cancer, our energy was meant to be focusing on shoring up our emotional foundations. And so the uncovering of wounds and triggers and familial templates that prevented us from having a life of emotional integrity, where we had the opportunity to act in alignment with what our hearts felt was true. All of the issues that blocked us from taking those types of actions were brought to the surface during the last 2 years. Now we have the North Node in Gemini. And what a kickoff we have had. These 2 years bring forward a different energy for us. Gemini and Sagittarius, just like Capricorn and Cancer, they work as a singular energy because they are tied together by 180 degrees on the zodiac wheel. Gemini is, both of them are the energy of communication, thought, mind, and spirit via the words. Creation via words, but also thinking things through and talking things through and understanding where it is we want to go via our highest ideals and via our choices about those highest ideals. That's Gemini Sagittarius. It's thought, mind, communication. The interesting thing about this is that the North Node has placed itself in Gemini, and it's understood among astrologers when you look at the zodiac wheel that the later 6 signs, Libra all the way through Pisces, are the 180-degree evolution of the earlier 6 signs, the younger 6 signs of the zodiac. So Aries evolves into Libra. Taurus evolves into Cancer. And Gemini evolves into Sagittarius. They're linked energies, and one comes earlier and is understood to be quote unquote younger. One comes later and is understood to be quote unquote more mature. However, with the North Node moving into Gemini, the South Node in Sagittarius, what we have happening, as you can see, Sagittarius, the symbol is 2. It's the sign of the twins. Sagittarius, the symbol is 1. It's the sign of the archer, the single focused point of direction that we intend to go. But with the North Node calling all of us into the sign of 2, away from the sign of 1, what we are about to experience and are currently experiencing on planet Earth is the uncovering of how self is like the other person, how the other person is like ourselves, mirroring, and we are about to see the ways in which we have yet to live up to our highest ideals and our highest truths. This transit for all of us, and you can see this as you look around the events on planet Earth, is exposing the truth of where we have not lived up to our highest ideals yet. And it's going to expose for all of us the mirrors that our life is full of, showing us how we need to grow, how we need to evolve, so that we can become a more integrated group, a more integrated collective, by also becoming more integrated selves. Where have we cut ourselves in two? Where have we said, oh, this part of me is acceptable, but that part's not? Where have we said, oh, this other person who's just like me actually isn't like me at all? That's them. This is us. This particular transit, as the North Node really just arrived in the last 2 to 3 weeks in the sign of Gemini, is going to show us the truth about where we need to change so that we can become whole again. So this is a 2-year transit, and this is just the beginning, people. So fasten your seatbelts. If this is how we're starting, we've got a long way to go. And, you know, there's something to take heart in and things to take hope in as we look about what's happening in the world. You know, it's interesting. My divine counterpart had asked me recently, as we were, you know, discussing the protests against police brutality on TV and racial injustice. We were talking about it, and he said to me, you know, Kate, how do you not give up hope? Like, how do you still believe in people looking at this? Like, you already know how I feel. Like, I feel like the human race is garbage. And I'm like, I know. That's not the truth. I know you feel that way. And I just said to him, you know, the reality is that, you know, there was a point in my life where I got so depressed about specifically racial injustice and class injustice and gender injustice. And I just got to a place in my life where I got so depressed about it, I ended up having a nervous breakdown. And I said to him, the only way I was able to make it through that moment of my life was to take my attention and place it on where I could A, create change, and B, where there was light. Because as long as I was looking at darkness, I had manifested darkness within myself. I had become it. I got so depressed, I was non-functional, not dysfunctional. I was not able to function at all. I mean, I had to withdraw from school and like take time off, and I had to do all these things because I was non-functional, and I was that depressed about these things. And the only way to reintegrate myself and not see myself as a victim, as a woman of color, and not see myself as a you know, someone who's always going to be on the short end of the stick, was I had to locate where I did have power and locate where I did have choice. And I needed to place my attention on what was working, what choices I did have, and what power I did have so that I could become whole again. By focusing solely on the darkness, I had split myself in two, and I had divorced myself from my own power. But when you have the opportunity, and this is a choice moment, the sign of Gemini, the sign we just got into, is about choices. When you have a choice about where to place your attention, my invitation to you is, and Love and Light's invitation to you is, focus on where you have power and choice. Focus on where you are whole. Focus on how you are able to create change. It is important to understand what's not working, but only so that you have access to what can work. Not so that you can set up a home, camp there, stay there, and consistently find what's wrong forever and ever and ever for the rest of your life. That will lead to non-function. And I explained this to my counterpart, and I said to him, I said, there's no life there for me. And that was the truth. I was dying when I had my attention on those things. So, the invitation is to make choices that are constructive for the pain and the disappointment and the disillusionment that we see when we look around our communities, our governments, our neighborhoods, our families, to make choices that are constructive and that build and that foster life and that bring us into a place of greater integration within ourselves. But what we are seeing in terms of, these protests and disparities, especially health disparities as it pertains to COVID as well, what we are seeing is, how to put it? It's the exposure of disparities that were already there. This is not new. What we are seeing is the exposure of separation that was already there, and our inability to be one with ourselves and one with others. What's getting exposed are all of the ways that we were already stopping that oneness and that unity consciousness. So take heart, beloveds. You can't heal what you can't see. And now that you can see it, you have the capacity to do something about it. Okay. So, and this is a good thing. The lunar eclipses bring endings and completions of cycles. And what the lunar eclipse is ending in Sagittarius is false hope, false faith, false beliefs that we were further along than we actually are. That's what ended for all of us. And wherever Sagittarius or Gemini sit in your chart is where that falsity is currently getting illuminated. It's not an easy time. But like I said, you can't heal what you can't see. And this 2020 is a year, people talked about 2020 being the year of 2020 vision, clear sight. It's painful to see what we haven't been able to see when what we haven't been able to see has been so separative and so divisive. And so compromising when we thought we were so much further along, living by so much higher ideals. Now we are seeing where we need to raise our own bars when it comes to treating ourselves as we would treat another, treating another as we would treat ourselves, etc., etc., etc. This particular full moon, excuse me, beloveds, comes with a T-square to a Mars-Neptune conjunction. So here's the Sun conjunct Venus, and here's the opposing moon here. Anytime the Sun is opposite the moon, we get a full moon. That's just the way that works. But we've got a T-square here, and T-squares bring tension. They agitate us. They shake us up, and they cause discomfort so that we can understand where we need to work to bring greater unification, greater harmony. And so this T-square to Mars conjunct Neptune is one piece of the context. And I'm going to get into what that is in a moment, because these are all mutable signs, and mutable signs are about change. They are the seasons of the zodiac that start in one and end in another. So, for example, Pisces, where this T-square sits, it starts in winter and it ends in spring. Okay, so that's an example of mutability and mutable signs. And this is a lunar eclipse in a mutable sign and a full moon in a mutable sign. So it's about starting in one place so that we can find our way to the next place, the next season, the next chapter. We've also got, because we've got the Sun conjunct Venus opposite this full moon, this is letting us know these two energies together, where we are done with certain things when it comes to our values. We are done allowing certain values to exist within ourselves and within the collective. And it's exposing which values we will no longer stand for, which values we will no longer undergird or support, and which values we will no longer participate in. The Mars energy here really wants to act. That's Mars. It's about action. But in Pisces, the action needed is one that is spiritually grounded, especially with Mars conjunct Neptune. Neptune as an outer planet, it's understood in astrology that the outer planets have a more significant influence than the inner planets. And so Mars is closer to the sun, Neptune further from the sun. Mars wants to act. Neptune is about the unseen world. It's about diffuse energy that's hard to put together concretely, but Mars is very focused. When you put this together, there's two ways that this could play out. This is about having a diffuse ability to act, or finding yourself unable to act, incapacitated in certain ways. But it could also be the opposite of that, which is taking a spiritualized action, taking an action that's grounded in spiritual wisdom, spiritual truth, and spiritual principles. This is not necessarily about religion either, because Virgo's about religion, but Virgo's not indicated here. This is not about the letter of the law as much as it is about the truth of the law, the wisdom of the law, the spirit of the law. So, two choices, my friends, and that's kind of the energy of this entire eclipse cycle of the nodes being in Gemini and Sagittarius. It's about choice, because the choices that you make now really do set up the entirety of the next chapter. I mean, like decades or more of your life. What kind of life do you want to build? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of neighbors do you want to have? What kind of children do you want to raise? Hmm? This is the moment where these choices get made. As far as it goes with twin flames, during this particular lunation cycle, we've got some interesting energies going on. I'm going to address the divine feminine's energy first, and then I'll address the divine masculine's energy. Both, as you're listening to this, keep it in mind that, you have both energies, and so both are going to apply to you. You just need to locate where in your life both things are applicable for you. Juno, the divine feminine, as I read, the divine consort of Jupiter in the mythology, Juno's now direct. And she is moving, she's out of retrograde. And in the entirety of the retrograde season for 2020, where every single planet went retrograde, it's really important to note that her retrograde went first this year. There's every single planet going retrograde, but she led the way. She did the internal turn with her energies first. Now she's direct, and she's in the sign of partnership and collaboration, Libra. Libra is also the sign of fairness, justice, equity. And this is very significant as we consider what's happening today around race, power, justice, and equality globally at this time. The divine feminine's renewed energy and renewed capacity to act, because her energy isn't moving inward the way it does with a retrograde. It's now moving outward and facing the rest of the world. This is part of the divine design, I believe. And, many people have referred to the Dalai Lama's quote that, if the world is to be saved, it is a Western woman who will save the world. There's lots and lots and lots of references to this being women's time to lead across cultures everywhere all over the planet. And it doesn't have to be Western women, it's just women. Um, this is a moment that is signifying that planetarily in very clear terms. It's her voice that is meant to be the outward leading voice at this time. It's her insight, her wisdom, and her clarity that's now available as she has finished her retrograde and internal introspective period. Every other major planetary energy is either currently retrograde or about to go retrograde in the next 60 days. So, however you're called to work, divine feminines, get to it. This is the moment. Because the divine feminine energy sits here in the cardinal sign of Libra. Cardinal signs are about initiation, beginnings, new steps forward. The cardinal signs of the zodiac are the beginnings of a new season, a new energy, a new chapter. And so she is sitting in the sign of partnership, justice, fairness, equity, and she is heralding in a new beginning for every other planetary player in the wheel. This is really about taking initiatives in your relationships, as cardinal signs are about taking that initiative, but also specifically about relationships. This is the cardinal sign that's about relating and interpersonal work. So, it's interesting because I've seen in the last 30 days, a lot of divine feminines who've, just wrapped up the Understanding Men course with Allison Armstrong, and they're implementing tools for greater collaboration between the genders, balancing out the energies between the genders. I know there are some women who are called to work on the human trafficking problem, and they've taken steps forward. Other women are really called to work on, partnerships between schools and parents, because so many parents are needing to homeschool that didn't think they would need to homeschool. That wasn't how they decided to have children, to be a homeschooling teacher. And there are other women who are having conversations in partnership around, how do we step up our partnership around, race and fairness and equity and justice as it pertains to what we see happening on planet Earth at this time. And so, as we're witnessing, the ramp up of incidents, or I shouldn't say ramp up, it's an exposure because it's already been there. Incidents of inequality and injustice and disparity, it's truly the divine feminine who's being called to step up and lead the charge toward a more just, a more fair, and a more equitable world for all of us to live in. So notice here how she's sitting in an air sign, which is about mind and communication, facing a fire sign, which is about action and initiative. This is a moment where, divine feminines, you are called to not stay silent. You are called to take an action. You are called to step out of doing nothing, and this is the time to rise. And so specifically, I've had several friends reach out to me, and I've seen several conversations online as we look at, the protests and the conversations around race, justice, fairness, and equity. If you don't know what to do, I just wanted to add in to this particular Lunations conversation a few quick Google search terms you could use that you may find helpful for articles and organizations that can assist your personal work in changing the course of humanity as a local leader in a global movement. So, Sandra Walter, Ascension Guide, talks a lot about thinking globally but acting locally. This would mean that your search terms are things like, anti-racism or anti-bias trainings near me, how to raise anti-racist children, how to talk to your children about racism. You can look up anti-racist organizations near me, or understanding racism if you are not a person of color. How to stand up to racism at work, or how to intervene in an incident of racist bullying. How to intervene in bullying, period. Another search term would be undoing unconscious bias. By Google searching these things and educating yourself about what's going on, you move yourself out of the realm of thought and into the realm of action, which is what the divine call is for the divine feminine in the sign of partnership, fairness, justice, balance, and equity. It's to move out of thought and into action at this time. Now, I also know that there's a number of people who take no action because they don't know what to do, or they don't want to mess it up, or they don't want to look or sound racist, or look or sound like they're a member of the wrong group. That's normal to feel that way, especially when you just weren't trained or you don't know these things. It's like, I don't want to be the bad person here, but I also don't I wasn't shown how to be the good person. You know, it's interesting. In Alison Armstrong's Understanding Men course, she takes an entire 4 or 5 hours to unpack specifically how we live in a culture that doesn't properly appreciate masculine energy for what it is, and that being in that culture is one that we didn't create. You didn't inherit. We inherited that culture. We inherited those mindsets that think all men are bad, all men are evil, all men are sexist, all men are pigs. We inherited that mindset, and it was written into the blind spots of our thinking. And so, in order to get to a place where we can stand in great partnership with men, we have to first uncover the ways that we actually inherited pretty crummy thinking. The same is true around race and ethnicity and culture and class divides. Those of us who are on planet Earth at this time, the majority of us, we didn't create this. We inherited this mess. So it's up to us to undo it. But in order to undo it, we have to learn how to see it. So, you know, the beautiful thing about what Alison said in the course, she just said, I guarantee you, you're gonna mess this up. I'm going to teach you these things, and I 100% guarantee you, you will put your foot in it. And that's okay. What matters is that you took the step to learn a new way, because the more you recognize what doesn't work, the clearer you are about the truth about where things aren't fair, aren't just, the easier it is to step into a new pattern once you've learned the new way. And this is the time in which Divine Feminine specifically, I mean, this can't be more black and white. This is the sign of fairness and justice, is called to lead the way on learning a new way. It is pretty black and white. So if you're really, really worried about, you know, putting your foot in it, here's just from, as a woman of color, I don't speak for all women of color, but I speak for myself. And, you know, there's other people on the internet who will tell you what else you can do. Here are some things those things that I told you to research, those are things you can start doing. Here are things you can stop doing. Feeling guilty because you're not a person of color. Just cut that out. That's not going to serve you. Asking your Chinese or Asian or Black friends who are experiencing incidents of racism because of either coronavirus or because of, you know, just the history and legacy of racism across the globe. Stop asking them if they're okay after incidents of racism. They're not okay. They're pissed off. That's the reality. The responsible way to, quote, be there for them, if you want to be there for them, isn't to call them, but it's instead to take an action that makes the world a safer place for their bodies to live in. Get into an organization. Actually do something about the way your kids are thinking and speaking. Actively find out how to stand up to racism. Do what you have to do to make the world safer, as opposed to making sure they're psychologically okay. This will also help you with number one, which is stop feeling guilty. You won't feel guilty if you're acting. And then you can also, you know, what does this note say? Yeah, it's okay to not know what to do, but it's not okay to not act. It's okay to not know, but find out. Yeah, you're going to put your foot in it. When men try to actively be non-sexist, how often do they put their foot in it? All the time. And simultaneously, does that mean we want them to stop trying? No. We want them to keep learning. We want them to keep going. And so this is how we stand in, again, partnership, sign of partnership. Find where you are called to learn how to be a better partner and step into it. Take an action, Aries. Take initiative, cardinal signs. That's what this energy is about. And then the last thing I would say, stop doing as, a person who's not part of the group that may be experiencing oppression is asking people of color to explain it to you. Every time we have to re-explain it, we have to relive the trauma of it. Explaining things is Google's job. Google it. Use the Google. Use it often. It is a powerful tool to help you understand things. But more than anything, whatever it is, wherever it is, whatever issue it is, I happen to be really called to work around, racial justice and inequity, also around spirituality and love. Those are my two areas of activism. This is the moment for your spiritual activism, divine feminines. This is it. This is the call to it. Your divine masculine is out here at 90 degrees working on a completely different agenda. And I explained this in the 2020 Union Energy Update video that he's got a different agenda going on. This is not the year for, a ton of external focus and push on how do I move the relationship forward. This is how do I evolve myself year so that I'm a better person, capable of a better quality of relating to all human beings on the planet, including my divine counterpart. This is that year. As once we raise our floor, then we have the opportunity to have a better quality future. But if we keep staying stuck in the old ways, there is no opportunity for a better future. We stay stuck where there was separation. And we are being asked, divine feminines in particular, to move out of the separative patterns and into patterns around coming together and creating unity and partnership with the world, starting with ourselves first. All right. So, what about the divine masculine? What's going on there? Before we get there, I just want to say that, normally in a chart, we find that the divine masculine and divine feminine have a whole bunch of other planets that they're talking to, like a lot, that are actually pulling on the energy to manifest in a very specific way. The divine feminine in this chart under this moon's lunation is relatively unaspected. There's no other energy speaking to her other than the shaman's asteroid, which is about taking a long journey, an arduous journey, a long trial to bring back wisdom for our tribe. And so this is that moment, divine feminines. Literally, wherever you're called to work toward greater collaboration, go for it. This is it. Shine, rise. Go where you're called. Shine your light. So, wherever your divine feminine energy is meant to go, and if you're not sure, we can have a look at this in your personal chart. All men, all women have divine feminine energy. And so wherever you're called to look at this in your chart, we can have a peek because there are 12 houses where this information is sitting there. Which house is it sitting in for you can help you clarify where you're meant to work. And so email me if you want to book a personal reading to look at your divine service work at chrysalismoon@gmail.com. And we can start to flesh out what it is you're being asked to do, or if you've got a business so you want to get it off the ground, how your chart is meant to flow with that business and what energies you're meant to bring into that business. On that note, because as I've mentioned, I'm called around racial justice and equity. I have a platform. I am using it and I will continue to. Um, if you're really uncomfortable with that, this is a great time to unsubscribe and find your place where you're going to be comfortable with what you need. But wherever you have a platform for what you want to bring into the world, this is your time to use it, to step out of the shadows. And in that regard, I will also be offering the Christ Consciousness meditation series again as we move into this solstice. And you are more than welcome to join me for that. Christ happens to be my teacher on the topic of unconditional love, but both I and Christ recognize in our work that there are many teachers on unconditional love. Meditations called Christ Consciousness, but you are welcome to come in and anchor the love from the teacher whose name you most recognize on the topic of unconditional love when we begin. It'll be a 12-day series. We're going to begin 12 days before the solstice, so I believe that's the 21st of June this year. We did 12 days on the solstice in December. We're going to do 12 days again now, but this time we're going to add a very special component to it. For those of you who are led, we are going to unify our human heart grid in that vibration of love. Once we've done the meditation and anchored the love in our physical bodies, we're going to unify the human heart grid, and then we will be picking either a circumstance, a place, a group, a set of people that could use more love, and we will unify our grid and then beam love into that circumstance or towards those people to bring more unconditional love toward the planet and that situation. So we'll pick a different group every single day for 12 days. It'll happen organically, the group that gets chosen. And you are more than welcome to be a part of this spiritual activist. I don't know how to say it, meditation. You're more than welcome to join. We would love to have you. The clearing is very powerful. It does move a lot of energy and anchoring unconditional love. And so this is part of how I'm called to lead and serve at this time, is to provide this platform and this clearing as a way for people to do this work to anchor more love on planet Earth. So we're going to retemplate the human heart grid with love together. And if you're called to, you're more than welcome to do so. Look for, if you're not already subscribed, subscribe, because the announcements about it will be in the community section, and you won't be able to see that section if you're not subscribed to the channel. Let's talk about what's going on for the Divine Masculine at this point. I read Divine Masculine as Jupiter. And here he is at degree 26 of Capricorn, moving retrograde, which means energy moving inward, not outward. Our masculine energies are in the process of receiving a massive rewrite from Source. Divine Masculine energy, now retrograde, moving backward, is about to meet up for the second time with Pluto. The first meeting was a couple months ago. The second meeting, I believe, is in the next 30 days. Don't quote me on that. You can Google Juno Pluto conjunction if you want the exact date, but it's an energy that covers the entire year. Recall in mundane astrology that this Jupiter represents faith, hope, optimism, and expansion. But during a retrograde, it can feel like the lights went out in our worlds. And during a retrograde meet with the Lord of the underworld and Master of alchemy, death, transformation, and change, it can feel like our luck has really run out. So for the Divine Masculines who are listening to this, I want to just acknowledge for you that this can feel a lot like the rug has been pulled out from underneath you in your life, financially and work-wise, because the Divine Masculine is sitting in the sign of Capricorn, which is about work. Family-wise, because that energy indicates transformation in the sign of family, right opposite it, Cancer. Can also feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath you relationship-wise, because that energy is squaring the sign of relationship and partnership here. And it can also feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath you in the sign of the self. That's Aries over here. This is going to feel for many of you divine masculines like a vital part of the structure you've relied upon to navigate your life is crumbling, so that you may feel like you have no real ground to stand on or move forward with. The months of May through September are going to be some of the most challenging for you this year, depending upon how your chart sits. And again, if you want to look at your chart, we can look at where there's moments of flow and ease and where there's moments of challenge and what you're being asked to learn and do in those moments of challenge. So you're not swimming upstream. Just email me if you want to do that. Info's in the description box. But November will have that final meet of Jupiter and Pluto, I believe. Is it November? I'll post the meetups of this energy below of Jupiter and Pluto, because those are the times where we're going to have that crumbling. Those 3 times will be like the 3 times an ending energy. And then you'll also have a meetup with Saturn, and Saturn is the opposite energy to Jupiter. Jupiter wants to expand, Saturn wants to contract. Jupiter wants to give opportunity via luck. Saturn wants to give opportunity via hard work and discipline. And so this whole year for divine masculine energies is not gonna feel awesome for you guys. The whole year. What's happening here is that our relationships to our own masculine energies and our expression of masculinity is getting restructured and rewritten. The Pluto meetup, remember Pluto is the Lord of the underworld, is about recognizing where we have abused our power in the areas that we've discussed, or where we have let other people abuse their power over us in the areas that we've discussed. And this is about becoming accountable as Jupiter meets up with Saturn in a couple of months. This is going to be about becoming accountable and restoring integrity and correct boundaries with our masculine energies. So this year is going to up-level divine masculine energy in ways that haven't been available on the planet Earth in hundreds of years. So the men who are on the planet, specifically the divine masculines, are anchoring in a new template for the way to be a man on planet Earth. And us as divine feminines, we too are anchoring in that new template around masculinity and femininity this year. 2020 is the year for that. How do we be a man and a woman in a way that respects the other, doesn't abuse power, and honors everyone's unique capacity to give and to thrive on the planet? And you can see this playing out, where there has been distorted patterns of masculine energy, because not all men abuse power. However, we're in a cultural bubble moment here on Earth where it's very acceptable to enjoy abuses of power for entertainment in our movies, our television. It's very acceptable to greenlight it in our workplaces. Oh, we'll just not pay attention to how the women are getting paid less. No one will look at that. No, don't pull those records. We don't need to worry about it. We won't level out, the paychecks for women who are doing the exact same job as men. We'll just ignore it like it's not happening. We're being asked to level up in our workplaces and in our legal systems, and to create new legal precedences for allowing women to have the same rights as men. And in our medical, educational, and financial systems, all of these in the cultural bubble that we live in during the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle are going to expose how we have given permission on the planet Earth to the abuse of women and men being allowed to take and consume more power over women. This isn't all men. And many women have been allowed to use their own masculine energies to emasculate men and to participate in the abuse of other women. It's a real testament to how truly loving men actually are and how big-hearted men actually are at their core, that more men aren't being abusive in this way. It's a true testament to the way men are actually built, which is very loving, very protective, wanting to provide, wanting to create. It's a testament to that there's so few men who actually do it. And it's a real testament to where we are culturally, that we've allowed it to run as rampant as we have, that we have not put more of a stop to it yet. And this year, 2020, is the year where we're due, both men and women, for an upgrade in the way that we experience and use masculine power. And this year that upgrades, this is the year that the upgrade begins with the divine masculine leading the way for all other men, because the divine masculine's in the sign of structure. And in order to change the structure externally by the law of correspondence, we have to change it inside first. And so for many divine masculine energies, what you are experiencing is the death of an old structure that included that old paradigms and old templates and old thinking, so that you can rise like a phoenix from the ashes and deliver a new way in the years to come. Know that you're going to come through this year a very changed man, a man whose life is a reflection of your divinity, your truth, and your heart. This year is the year that you're being granted a restart on your life, a chance to redo everything from work to money to family, relationship structures, even yourself. And this is not easy work. And for those of you who, you have a divine feminine and you've kind of set that relationship aside, I get it. We get it. This is not easy work. How can you possibly build a relationship when you are too busy reconstructing and rebuilding yourself? Focus on doing your work. We are doing ours. That first pass with Pluto probably set off a chain reaction of losses, like almost a domino effect. The second meet with Pluto may be a second wave of that, or like a reckoning with that. And the thing to remember as we're moving through this energy and to keep in mind is that the Lord of the Underworld only wants to take the patterns and structures that are keeping you from being your truest self. It's lightening your load on purpose so that you too can become the leader that you already have always been, but you can shine without being shackled by the past. And it's important to remember that who you are, keep remembering who you are, divine masculines, at your core and in your heart. Remember that you're a good man. Remember that the world needs you, that the world has not dealt you easy choices when it comes to your masculinity. They haven't shown always positive pictures of men. And so you've not had an easy road to navigate in terms of fulfilling your own soul contract around being divine incarnate. And it's important to not give up on yourself, no matter what the women in your life are doing. You don't give up on you. Remember, 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 you're going to come through this, and that the choices that you're making aren't just helping you, they're going to encourage the men who are part of your template in your family, your neighborhoods, your workplaces, to follow in your footsteps in due time. To book a reading to see how all of this is playing out for you, please email me at chrysalismoon@gmail.com. You'll get an autoresponder that details how to book that reading. Once you're paid, you'll receive an invitation to my calendar so we can get you scheduled for the month of July. July reading calendar is open. And as I said, these energies for both divine masculine and divine feminine, they're going to be here all year long. So now's a great time to have a look, since we're hitting the turning point, at what you're meant to be doing with them for you. I look forward to seeing you during the Christ Consciousness meditations and seeing how all of this plays out for you in the comments below. Take great care, and bye for now.